Su Tang transmigrated into the role of the vicious female antagonist in a palace intrigue novel, but she had no interest in scheming and only wanted to lie low and be a couch potato. Unexpectedly, while lazing around, she ended up becoming the Empress, Su Tang. None of the villains in this generation are any match. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins, on a spring afternoon, with 100 flowers in full bloom. Palace maids and eunuchs busied themselves with heads bowed. Su Tang lay lazily in a rocking chair, squinting her eyes as she nibbled on candied fruit and basked in the sun. This sun is making my bones melt, she stretched lazily. All that harem scheming and fighting for favor, might as well just sleep. Her personal maid, Chun Dao, stamped her foot in anxiety and whispered urgently, "Your Highness. The noble consort just sent someone with a message. There's a talent competition in front of the Emperor. If you don't go now, people will talk." Su Tang rolled over and casually tossed away the fruit pit. A talent competition? To see who sleeps the best? Then I'd win for sure. Chun Dao twisted her handkerchief, her voice trembling. But His Majesty will be there too. Aren't you afraid of being outshone by the other consorts? Afraid of what? Su Tang yawned, her eyelashes gilded by the sunlight. My goal is to idle away and wait for death, not to be a model worker. From a distance came the tinkling of jade ornaments as the noble consort approached gracefully with a group of palace ladies. She sneered, smoothing the golden hairpin at her temple. "Oh, Sister Su, are you even disregarding His Majesty's face now?" Su Tang slowly sat up, sunlight flowing over her skirt. "You misunderstand, noble consort sister." She tilted her head with a smile. "I'm just conserving my energy so I don't doze off during the performance later." The concubines covered their mouths and snickered, while the noble consort's face darkened, her nails digging into her palms. "You're quite sharp-tongued, little sister, but I wonder what you'll have to show for yourself when it comes to music, chess, calligraphy, and painting." "To be honest," Su Tang said earnestly, raising a finger, "I only know one talent." The crowd leaned in curiously. "Oh, what is it?" Lying flat, before her words had even faded, the entire hall fell into sudden silence. The consort, enraged to the point of laughter, her golden hairpin shaking violently. "You!" Suddenly, footsteps sounded from behind the rockery. Emperor Xiao Jingheng emerged with the chief eunuch in tow, his black robes brushing past the flowering branches. Everyone hurriedly bowed, but he raised an eyebrow and glanced at the rocking chair. "I was unaware, my beloved consort, that you possessed such a remarkable skill." Su Tang met his gaze calmly, the wooden hairpin in her hair swaying gently with her movement. "Your Majesty flatters me. I merely spoke the truth." Xiao Jingheng's interest deepened, his fingers rubbing the jade thumb ring. "Then why not let me witness it for myself?" As you can see, she simply lay back in the rocking chair, her skirt spreading out like flower petals. "This is the sum of all I have learned in my life," the concubines gasped. And Chun Dao leaned against a pillar, nearly collapsing. Xiao Jingheng suddenly burst into laughter, startling birds into flight over the glazed tiles. "Excellent. This is the first time I've ever seen such a candid consort." The noble consort tugged at the Emperor's sleeve indignantly. "Your Majesty, she is showing contempt for the palace rules." "Sister noble consort." Su Tang closed her eyes and gently rocked the chair, her voice dripping with honey. "Isn't competing for favor so exhausting? Why not join me in basking in the sun?" A flicker of darkness passed through Xiao Jingheng's eyes as he waved for everyone to withdraw. Leaning close to Su Tang's ear, his ambergris scent faintly lingering, he whispered, "Su Tang, you are quite intriguing. Can being intriguing get me a pension?" she muttered, pulling a thin blanket over her face. The Emperor was taken aback, then left with a laugh, leaving behind a room full of stunned concubines. Bedchamber times evening. Chun Dao fluttered anxiously around Su Tang, the candlelight casting her frantic shadow onto the silk canopy. "Your Highness, you've thoroughly offended the noble consort today. What's there to fear?" Su Tang munched on an apple, juice wetting her fingertips. "Could she possibly be lazier than me? But His Majesty seems to be." Chuantao's words were cut short as a eunuch's sharp announcement suddenly echoed from outside the hall. "His Majesty has arrived." Su Tang choked on a bite of apple. Xiao Jingheng had already strode in, his bright yellow robes sweeping past the threshold. a gilded food box in hand. "My beloved consort," he said with a slight curl of his lips, "I've come to join you." Lying flat, Su Tang's eyes widened, the apple core tumbling onto the carpet. Chun Dao fainted in excitement by the screen, while the candle flame crackled and burst into a spark. The candlelight flickered as Xiao Jingheng sat leisurely on the soft couch, his slender fingers methodically unwrapping the pastry box. Su Tang hugged the pillow tightly, her almond-shaped eyes narrowing with caution. "Your Majesty, what is this?" "The Imperial Kitchen's newly made honey date cakes." He lifted his gaze, his amber eyes reflecting the candlelight. "I thought my beloved consort would like them." "I'm not hungry, Your Majesty." She forced a dry laugh and shrank back slightly, the silver hairpin tassels in her hair swaying gently. Xiao Jingheng raised an eyebrow, tapping his fingers lightly on the edge of the food box. "Oh, then what was the apple my beloved consort was just nibbling on, to aid digestion?" she retorted stiffly, the tips of her ears turning slightly red. A low chuckle echoed through the hall. He picked up a piece of pastry and brought it to her lips, powdered sugar dusting his fingertips. "Try it." Su Tang leaned back against the carved bedpost, her eyelashes fluttering in panic. "Your Majesty, this is against the rules." "I am the rules." He extended his wrist another half-inch, the dragon-patterned cuff brushing against her chin. Steeling herself, she took a small bite, her cheeks puffed as she mumbled vaguely, "It's delicious. Even your lies are so half-hearted, my beloved consort." Xiao Jinghan suddenly leaned in closer, his shadow enveloping her entirely. "What would your Majesty like to hear then?" She gave up all pretense and tugged at the brocade quilt. "Your servant is moved to tears." The scent of ambergris suddenly drew near. He braced one hand beside her ear, his jade thumb ring tapping lightly against the sandalwood bed frame. "I am merely curious, why is it that you alone refuse what everyone else fights tooth and nail to obtain?" "Because I'm lazy," she blinked, her toes curling secretly beneath the covers. Silence solidified in the air. He abruptly drew back, his black robe stirring a gust of wind. "Very well, I shall visit you again tomorrow." The night wind rushed in as the palace doors swung open and shut. Su Tang stared blankly at the swaying beaded curtain. Chun Dao darted out from behind the screen, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Your Highness, His Majesty is taking an interest in you. Does he have a problem?" She ruffled her dark hair in frustration and kicked the brocade quilt into a tangled mess. "I've been so lazy and unambitious." Chun Dao cupped her face and spun in place. "Maybe His Majesty just likes you the way you are." "It's over." Su Tang sprawled out like a starfish, her silk socks slipping halfway off her feet. "This male lead isn't following the script at all." Imperial study times, noon the next day. The vermilion brush left sharp red marks on the memorial. The chief eunuch approached over the plush carpet, bowing at a 90-degree angle. "Your Majesty, the noble consort requests an audience. She says she has prepared your favorite Snow Summit emerald tea." "I have no time." Xiao Jingheng did not look up, ink dripping from the tip of his wolf hairbrush. The chief eunuch swallowed hard. Then, "Consort De has been waiting outside the hall for half an hour. Let her go back." The pen was set down heavily on the inkstone, splattering a few drops of ink. The chief steward's sleeves trembled as he hesitated to speak. The Emperor suddenly looked up, the sunlight casting sharp shadows across his brow. "What is Su Tang doing?" "Your Majesty." The chief steward froze, cold sweat beading on his forehead. "Lady Su. She is drying radishes in the courtyard." "What?" Xiao Jingyan's fingers paused mid-air. "Lady Su says." The steward pulled out a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. "Sun-dried radish makes the soup especially sweet." Silence spread like ripples. The Emperor's wide black sleeves, embroidered with dragon patterns, suddenly swept across the table as he stood up, knocking over a teacup. "Prepare the carriage, I'm going to have some radish soup." The steward's eyes widened as the tea stain spread into a brown blotch on the memorial. Su Tang crouched on the bluestone slab, turning over the drying radishes, her skirt hem covered in grass clippings. Spring Peach came running in a fluster, her silk handkerchief fluttering in the wind. "My lady, His Majesty is coming this way." "Oh," she said without looking up, poking the wilted radish slices with her fingertips. "Warm up the leftover Osmanthus cakes from yesterday." Chun Dao stomped her feet in frustration, her embroidered shoes crushing a few fallen leaves. "Your Highness, the other consorts are preparing songs." dances, poetry, and paintings. Are we really going to serve His Majesty with leftover pastries? Then why don't you go catch a fish? Su Tang continued, turning the bamboo sieve, her wooden hairpin tilting precariously. Just say I personally fished it out of the river. A low chuckle suddenly came from the courtyard gate. Xiao Jingxian stood with his hands behind his back, his black robes sweeping over the threshold. My consort, you would personally catch a fish for me? Su Tang's hand trembled, scattering dried radish shreds all over the floor. Your Majesty, how come your footsteps make no sound? The chief eunuch leaned in and whispered a reminder, his goatee trembling slightly. Lady Su, the koi in the Imperial Gardens pond were tribute from Siam. Then I'll just stick to the dried radish, she said, patting her skirt as she stood up, her expression sincere. It's eco-friendly. Xiao Jingyan suddenly bent down, his slender fingers picking up a piece of dried radish. The sunlight filtered through the thin slice, casting an amber glow in his palm. This radish dried by my beloved consort, I'd like to taste it. It'll upset your stomach if eaten raw, she muttered softly, reaching for the water jug. The Emperor had already taken a bite, his Adam's apple bobbing twice. Indeed unique. I told you it wouldn't taste good. Su Tang handed over the celadon teacup, its base still smudged with dirt from sun-drying radishes. The imperial consort suddenly burst in with her palace maids, her gold thread-embroidered shoes crushing the dried radishes on the ground. Your Majesty, this subject has urgent matters to report. What's the matter? Xiao Jingheng frowned, wiping the frosting from the corner of his lips with his thumb. The imperial consort pointed her crimson-nailed finger straight at Su Tang's nose, her hairpin swaying wildly. She's hiding a voodoo doll in her palace, right there, achoo. Su Tang suddenly sneezed, rubbing her reddened nose. Sorry, the dried radish is a bit dusty. Your Majesty, the consort's voice rose sharply as she shook a yellow talisman from her sleeve. I saw it with my own eyes. Achoo, achoo. 2 consecutive sneezes shook the bamboo sieve, a gust of wind blew, and the drying radish strips plastered themselves all over the noble consort's face. The chief eunuch hurriedly tried to shield her, his horsetail whisk whipping through the air with after-images. Your Highness, be careful. Amid the chaos, a blue cloth bundle fell from the noble consort's sleeve. Spring Peach, quick-eyed and swift-handed, picked it up. Isn't this the voodoo doll the noble consort mentioned? The courtyard fell into dead silence. The noble consort's face turned as pale as gold paper, her lips trembling. This is, Su Tang rubbed her reddened nose, her eyes brimming with tears. So the noble consort came to offer warmth. Imperial study times evening. The chief eunuch bowed as he presented the report, the candlelight stretching his shadow long across the floor. Your Majesty, the puppet was indeed made by the noble consort. It bears the inscription, I am aware. Xiao Jingheng raised a hand to cut him off, the tip of his wolf hair brush hovering over the memorial. Silence spread through the sandalwood scent. He suddenly spoke. Was she really not intentional today? Lady Su is indeed allergic to dried radish. The chief steward presented the imperial physician's medical record. The imperial hospital has it on file. A low chuckle suddenly broke the silence. The Emperor took out his private seal from the rosewood box. Go to the storeroom and pick some high-quality tonics. Just say. A clear shout suddenly came from outside the window. Su Tang was holding a 3-meter-long bamboo pole, knocking down fruits from the top of the persimmon tree. Your Majesty, the dried persimmons I sun-dried are ready. Xiao Jingheng leaned out the window and saw her hair full of persimmon leaves, her skirt tucked at the waist, looking just like a little farm wife. Since the trees are already planted. She poked down another red persimmon with a bamboo pole and caught it confidently. It'd be a waste not to eat them. The persimmons suddenly hit a passing cleaning eunuch. The young eunuch clutched his head and crouched down. Ouch, this one doesn't count. Su Tang awkwardly withdrew the bamboo pole, the persimmon rolling twice in her palm. Xiao Jingheng rubbed his forehead with a low chuckle, ripples spreading through the ink in the inkstone. Imperial Garden Times Flower Viewing Banquet. The Empress sat upright in the main seat, her fingertips gently stroking the celadon teacup, surrounded by concubines adorned with pearls and jade. Only Su Tang drifted in, wearing a plain white cotton dress, clutching a bulging oil paper package in her arms. Sister Su is quite unique today, the Empress smiled, her gaze sweeping over the simple wooden hairpin in Su Tang's hair. "Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness." Su Tang plopped onto the stone stool, the oil paper package rustling noisily. "This skirt is especially comfortable to sleep in," the noble consort sneered, her gold nail guard scraping against the teacup with a harsh sound. "Some people, relying on the Empress' favor, have even abandoned all sense of propriety." "Exactly," Consort De chimed in, holding a shoe brocade handkerchief to her nose. "This fabric is something even palace maids wouldn't wear." "Indeed." Su Tang nodded earnestly, pulling a loose thread from her sleeve. "I specifically asked the laundry bureau for it. It absorbs sweat and breathes well." The concubines all choked in unison. Just then, a palace maid brought in a gilded pastry box, and the virtuous consort immediately straightened her posture. "This was made by a chef my father sent from Jiangnan." Su Tang suddenly pulled out an oil paper package, and dark, stick-like objects scattered across the table. "Would you like to try the sweet potato strips I sun-dried? All natural, no additives." The virtuous consort stared at the hardened sweet potato strips, her meticulously made-up face twitching slightly. "No. Thank you, His Majesty has arrived." The eunuch's sharp announcement suddenly rang out. The concubines hurriedly adjusted their pearl hairpins, while Su Tang frantically tried to stuff melon seeds into her sleeve, only to spill them all over the floor with a clatter. Xiao Jingheng stepped over the scattered seeds in his black dragon-patterned boots, raising an eyebrow slightly. "My consort, this is, Your Majesty." She patted her sleeve covered in melon seed shells. "This is the golden rain I specially prepared to welcome you." The imperial consort trembled with anger, her gold hairpin tinkling loudly. "Your Majesty, she is clearly." Xiao Jingheng bent down to pick up a sunflower seed, rubbing it open with his thumb. It's roasted quite fragrantly." The concubines collectively widened their eyes, their pale faces not even concealed by their rouge. Imperial kitchen times late night. Several palace maids gathered furtively by the stove, the flickering candlelight casting their frightened faces in shifting shadows. "Our mistress is now insisting on learning to dry radishes." The green-clad palace maid tugged at her hair. This morning, she had all the heated floor bricks in the bedchamber pried up to dry radishes. "Our mistress is even crazier," the pink-clad palace maid said, her voice trembling. "She filled in the koi pond and turned it into a vegetable patch, saying she wants to make all-natural rouge." The eldest palace maid suddenly broke down in tears. "Our mistress gave all her shoe brocade clothes to us. She said the emperor prefers simplicity, and now she wears hemp cloth every day." Silence spread through the firewood pile. Suddenly, a crunch chewing sound came from the roof beam. Su Tang crouched on the beam, munching on an apple, the core landing precisely in the slop bucket. "I told you all, fighting for favor is not as good as preserving your health." A scream pierced the night sky as the palace maids overturned the steamers and scattered in panic. The apple core traced a parabola in the moonlight, landing steadily in her outstretched palm. Imperial study times early morning. Wax tears piled up on the bronze stand, and Xiao Jingyan's eyes were tinged with a faint bluish hue. The vermilion brush hovered over the memorial for a long time. The chief eunuch approached with a bowl of ginseng soup, the steam on its surface long since dissipated. "Your Majesty, you haven't rested properly for 3 days. What has Su Tang been doing today?" The tip of the wolf hair brush suddenly shifted, leaving an ink blot on the rice paper. The chief eunuch's goat-like beard trembled. "Lady Su just sent someone to ask for leave, saying that spring brings drowsiness and autumn brings fatigue, so she won't attend the morning court. No, she won't be coming to pay her respects today." The brush tip pressed down heavily, the ink spreading like a dark cloud on the memorial. Xiao Jingheng let out a cold laugh. She certainly knows how to enjoy herself. The dark dragon-patterned wide sleeve suddenly swept across the desk, and the emperor overturned the teacup as he rose. "Prepare the carriage for Changchun Palace, Your Majesty." The chief eunuch stumbled a few steps after the retreating figure. "The morning court session is about to begin. I, too, am drowsy with spring." Xiao Jinghuan waved his sleeve without looking back, his jade pendant clinking against the doorframe. "Changchun Palace bedchamber times the sun is high in the sky." Su Tang curled up in a silk quilt like a silkworm cocoon, her dark hair spread across the embroidered pillow. Suddenly, a chill swept over her as cold air seeped into the covers. Chun Dao, bring another blanket, she mumbled drowsily, shifting further into the bed, only to bump into a warm body. Her eyes snapped open to meet Xiao Jingyan's eyelashes right in front of her. She bolted upright, hitting the bedpost. "Why, Your Majesty? Make some room," Xiao Jingyan said, lying down fully clothed, his black outer robe pinning down half of her quilt. "This is against the rules." She clutched the corner of the quilt tightly, shrinking backward, her hair brushing against his chin. "I am the rules." The Emperor closed his eyes, suddenly reaching out to pull her back, quilt and all. Su Tang stared at the tassels on the canopy, her voice trembling. "Have you been provoked by something, my beloved consort? Do you know," Xiao Jingyan suddenly opened his eyes, the shadows under them darker, "that I reviewed 300 memorials yesterday? Your Majesty, you must be tired." She took out a mugwort sachet and handed it over. "Would you like to try my sleep aid sachet? I cancelled court today." "Ah." The sachet fell with a soft thud between them. "Learning from you," Xiao Jingheng declared matter-of-factly as he tugged half of the brocade quilt over himself, the scent of ambergris mingling with the warmth of sunlight enveloping them. Suddenly, Chun Dao's panicked cry came from outside the hall. "Your Highness, the noble consort has brought the imperial physician to check your pulse." Su Tang immediately lay flat as a corpse, closing her eyes and feigning a weak breath. "Just say I'm suffering from terminal laziness." Her waist was suddenly pulled tight as Xiao Jingheng wrapped her, blanket and all, into his embrace, deliberately raising his voice. "By the Emperor's decree, today I and consort Su." He lowered his head close to her ear, his breath scorching. "What illness did you say you had just now?" Su Tang extended a finger from under the quilt. "Lazy bones, Imperial Garden times Chrysanthemum Appreciation Banquet." The Empress brushed her fingertips over the golden chrysanthemum petals, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Today, I've invited all sisters to appreciate the newly tribute dragon brain chrysanthemums." The imperial consort suddenly set her teacup down heavily, her golden hairpin tinkling. "Oh my, why is Sister Su hiding in the corner? Could it be that you look down upon Her Majesty's chrysanthemums?" Dozens of gazes shot over like arrows. Su Tang was shoved hard by Chun Dao, nearly hitting her forehead on the stone table. Is it time to eat?" Virtuous consort twisted her silk handkerchief, covering her mouth. "Sister Su, perhaps you were too exhausted from serving His Majesty last night." Indeed, it was exhausting. Su Tang rubbed the red mark left on her cheek from sleeping. "His Majesty insisted I teach him how to weave a grasshopper in the middle of the night." The autumn chrysanthemums in the garden suddenly seemed to freeze. A eunuch's sharp announcement pierced the dead silence. "His Majesty has arrived." Xiao Jingheng strode in briskly, a grass-woven locust dangling conspicuously from his bright yellow waistband. The court ladies' round fans clattered to the floor one after another. Late at night, the candlelight cast the shadow of the grass locust onto the gauze curtain. Xiao Jingheng fiddled with the straw stem with his fingertips, while Su Tang nestled in the soft couch, munching on an autumn pear, its juice trickling down her chin. "Today, the noble consort's father submitted a memorial." The Emperor suddenly spoke, his jade thumb ring glinting coldly. "Accusing you of deluding the sovereign's heart." "Oh," Su Tang bit out a perfect pear-core arc. "Do you need me to write a letter of repentance? I've dismissed it for you." He suddenly leaned in, the scent of ambergris enveloping her, a handkerchief brushing past her damp lips. "Why?" The pear-core rolled clattering onto the carpet. "Because," before he could finish, the sound of a heavy object falling into water came from outside the window. Chun Dao rushed in holding a lantern, her skirt splattered with mud. "Your Highness, someone threw a package into our courtyard." The guard presented a blue cloth bundle. Xiao Jinghan shook out the inner garment embroidered with dragon patterns, and the cold smile froze at the corner of his lips. It was the very undergarment that had mysteriously disappeared during last autumn's hunting trip. This embroidery. Su Tang held the inner garment up to the candlelight for a closer look, then suddenly burst into laughter. "Are they even trying with this clumsy frame-up?" A clumsily stitched patch was visible on the inside of the garment, with coarse thread ends still sticking out. She poked the edge of the patch with her fingertip. "Your Majesty, look, this stitching is clearly the handiwork of Matron Zhong from the Imperial Household Department." Xiao Jingheng's eyes darkened abruptly. "How does my consort know about my Last time when you were bathing, She suddenly bit her tongue and flusteredly covered her mouth. Continue. The Emperor propped one hand on the armrest of the couch, trapping her within a confined space. I was wrong. Su Tang crouched down, hugging her head. Her hair bun brushing against the jade pendant at his waist. It was Chundao who said you always sing while bathing. The copper basin in Chuantao's hands clattered to the ground, splashing hot water that soaked the dragon-patterned undergarment serving as evidence. Early morning. Su Tang crouched by the vegetable patch feeding the rabbits, her skirt hem turning green from brushing against carrot tops. Chundao came sprinting with her skirts lifted, her silk handkerchief half fluttering away. Your Highness, the noble consort is coming this way with a dozen matrons. Oh, she said without looking up, breaking apart vegetable leaves. Bring out the leftover melon seeds from yesterday to entertain the guests. The vermilion palace gate was suddenly kicked open. The imperial consort's gold thread embroidered shoes crushed the cilantro she had just planted. As she held up a glass jar high in her hand, Su Tang, do you know your crime? Does eating grass from the imperial garden count? Su Tang counted the black spots on the rabbit's ears, as 3 plump rabbits crowded around fighting for food. Stop playing dumb. The imperial consort slammed the stone table, making the teacups clatter. I have already uncovered evidence of your dealings with Western spies. Su Tang finally looked up, squinting to make out what was inside the glass jar. My sun-dried raisins, purple jade grapes specially supplied from the western regions. The imperial consort scraped her vermilion lacquered nails against the glazed jar. How dare you still try to lie your way out of this, sister consort? Su Tang sighed, pointing at the label at the bottom of the jar. These were grown in the hometown of eunuch Wang from the imperial kitchen. The jar even says specialty of Wang family village. A young eunuch suddenly scrambled in, stumbling and rolling, his hat askew. Your Highness, something terrible has happened. His Majesty. His Majesty the imperial consort's eyes lit up, her gold hairpin shaking excitedly. Has His Majesty finally decided to punish her? His Majesty gave all the grapes tribute from the western regions, the young eunuch said with a mournful face, all rewarded to consort Su to be sun-dried. The imperial consort staggered back 2 steps, stepping on her own skirt. Impossible. She suddenly flung a letter from her sleeve, the snow-white paper slapping Su Tang's face with a snap. Then what about this? The secret letter you wrote to the Northern Frontier General. Su Tang unfolded the letter, glanced at it, and suddenly burst into laughter. This is clearly a recipe I wrote. Stewed lamb with radish requires ginger. Impossible. The imperial concubine snatched back the letter and flipped through it frantically, her nails tearing the paper. I clearly had someone switch it out. Her words trailed off abruptly, in the deathly silence of the courtyard. Su Tang drawled out a slow O tilde, dragging the final note. The same day, early afternoon, the vermilion brush hovered above the memorial, not touching the paper. The chief eunuch dropped to his knees in a panic, beads of sweat splattering on the golden bricks. Your Majesty, the imperial concubine has been shouting non-stop in the cold palace, begging to see you. What did she say? Xiao Jingheng's brush did not pause, she said. The chief steward's Adam's apple bobbed. She said she's a time traveler and knew the plot in advance. The wolf hair brush snapped abruptly. The emperor lifted his gaze, his eyes sharp as blades. What else did she say? She said Consort Su was supposed to be poisoned in Chapter 3, deposed in Chapter 4, and in Chapter 5. The dark robe suddenly billowed. Xiao Jingheng strode swiftly outside, to the cold palace. In front of the iron bars of the cold palace, the imperial consort's hairpins were disheveled, her fingers gripping the railings. Your Majesty, I truly am a time traveler. Su Tang. Suddenly, her eyes widened. A familiar figure emerged from behind Xiao Jingheng. Su Tang was munching on an apple, the core accurately tossed into a spittoon 3 zhong away. Why aren't you following the script? The imperial consort's voice suddenly rose to a sharp pitch. Because I got the salted fish side story. Su Tang crunched down the last bite of the apple. The imperial consort's eyes rolled back, and she fell stiffly backward. The bronze lock on the iron bars rattled and fell into the dust with a click. Imperial study times late night. The wick burst into a spark, and Xiao Jingyan stared blankly at the words appoint an empress on the memorial. The chief eunuch approached with a calming tea. its surface no longer steaming, Your Majesty. It's the third watch, it's time to rest. Has Su Tang gone to sleep? The vermilion brush tapped lightly on the edge of the inkstone. Consort Su extinguished her lights at the hour of high. The chief eunuch produced a small booklet from his sleeve, saying she needs to nourish her complexion. The wolf hairbrush was suddenly placed on the brush rest. Xiao Jingzhuan turned his face, candlelight casting shadows across his sharply defined profile. Did she mention us today? Consort Su said. Beads of cold sweat formed on the chief eunuch's forehead. That Your Majesty looks particularly, when reviewing memorials. What's so special? The emperor unconsciously rubbed the jade pendant with his fingers, very much like her cousin back in her hometown, staying up late writing storybooks. The celadon teacup suddenly cracked with fine lines, tea dripping from the table onto the dragon-patterned boots. The next morning, Su Tang practiced Tai Chi in the morning glow. Her plain white undergarment billowing in the dawn breeze. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her from behind. She reached back to take the expected food box. Chun Dao, just put the osmanthus cake on the stone table. Do I look like a palace maid to you? A deep voice startled her, causing her to slip. A black sleeve embroidered with dragon patterns swiftly caught her by the waist. Clutching the front of his robe, Su Tang looked up and met Xiao Jinghuan's smiling eyes. Your Majesty. What brings you here at this hour? Take a look at this, my beloved consort. He drew a scroll of bright yellow silk from his sleeve. I don't know how to read, she said, releasing her hand and trying to step back, but her wrist was seized. Just yesterday you wrote a recipe for the imperial chef, Xiao Jingheng sneered. Thrusting the silk scroll into her hand, Su Tang unrolled the edict and suddenly widened her eyes, her eyelashes trembling violently in the morning light. An edict to appoint an empress. I've thought it over carefully, he said leisurely, smoothing the wrinkles on his sleeve. Rather than guessing what's on your mind every day. Suddenly approaching footsteps startled the sparrows under the eaves. Su Tang stepped back and stumbled over her own sash, only to have him seize her by the waist. Why not just keep you tied to my side, Your Majesty? Think twice. She flusteredly tried to pry his fingers away. Your servant is famously lazy. No matter. Xiao Jingxian chuckled softly, suddenly sweeping her up into his arms. I can carry you to court every day. Chun Dao stepped into the courtyard carrying a plate of osmanthus cakes, the porcelain dish clattering onto the bluestone pavement. Mistress, Your Majesty, your face is even redder than these osmanthus cakes. A few sparrows pecked at the scattered pastries, while the morning sun stretched the shadows of the embracing figures long and longer. The day before the coronation ceremony, Su Tang lay sprawled on the Xiangfei couch munching on watermelon, juice dripping from her fingertips onto her robe. Chun Dao rushed in holding a gilded phoenix crown, its pearls and jade ornaments jingling. Your Majesty, the Imperial Wardrobe Bureau has sent 12 sets of ceremonial robes. You must try them on at once. Just pick something light. Watermelon seeds were spat accurately into the porcelain spittoon 3 zhong away. Chun Dao was so anxious she kept spinning in circles, the pearls on her phoenix crown swaying wildly. How can this be? Consort Liu, no. The deposed consort Liu in the cold palace heard you're about to be crowned empress and has been starving herself for 3 days out of anger. Oh. Su Tang broke off another piece of watermelon, the red flesh making her fingertips appear even more luminous. Then why not send her some of the persimmons I dried? My future empress is quite generous. Xiao Jingheng leaned against the doorframe, a few petals clinging to the hem of his black casual robe. Chuantao's hand trembled, nearly dropping the phoenix crown to the ground. Su Tang wiped her mouth leisurely. Your Majesty, I've given it some careful thought. Thinking of defying the imperial decree, he narrowed his eyes, his thumb unconsciously stroking the jade pendant at his waist. No, she lifted her face, the wooden hairpin in her hair slipping halfway down. Could we change the coronation ceremony to be conducted lying down? The room fell into complete silence. Xiao Jingxian suddenly burst into laughter, startling a tree full of sparrows outside the window. Granted, tie her palace times coronation day. Civil and military officials stared in astonishment as 16 eunuchs carried a soft couch into the hall, a small lump visible beneath the embroidered quilt. The Minister of Rites trembled, his beard quivering. Your Majesty, this is against protocol. which rule states that the Empress must stand to receive the coronation. Xiao Jingzhan propped his chin, the beads of his imperial crown swaying gently before his eyes. The minister frantically flipped through the ancient texts, then suddenly froze. There really isn't one. A muffled murmur came from the embroidered quilt. Don't run away, Osman thus cake. Amid soft laughter, the emperor descended the dais. He removed the 9-dragon 9-phoenix crown and gently placed it on the lump of raised bedding. See, suddenly leaning close to the quilt, his warm breath seeped through the fabric. Beloved consort, it's time to get up and collect your monthly stipend. The covers were abruptly thrown open. Su Tang, her hair disheveled, widened her eyes. How much? Just as the ceremonial cannons boomed outside the hall, startling several elderly ministers into steadying their official hats. Cunning palace times mid-morning. The early summer sunlight filtered through the gauzy curtains. Su Tang lay sprawled on her specially widened phoenix bed, 2 imperial cats kneading rhythmically on her belly. Chun Dao tiptoed in and lifted the curtain, whispering in a hushed tone, "Your Majesty, it's time to rise. The Emperor has already finished the morning court. Just tell them I've been struck by a sudden illness." She buried her face in the mandarin duck pillow, a few stray cat hairs still tangled in her disheveled locks. The scent of sandalwood suddenly enveloped her. Xiao Jingheng lifted her, quilt and all, the dragon patterns on his court robes brushing against her cheek. What illness? Let me see. Terminal laziness. She wriggled twice in the brocade quilt. Like a silkworm binding itself in a cocoon, the rustle of oiled paper followed. Xiao Jingheng pulled out steaming pastries from his sleeve. A new butter pastry shop on West Street. A pale hand immediately shot out from under the covers. I think I can still be saved. 2 royal cats knocked over the vanity box while fighting over butter, sending pearls clattering and scattering all over the floor. Imperial study times while reviewing memorials. The vermilion brush hovered over the urgent report from the border. Suddenly, a furry head popped out from under the desk. Su Tang, holding a food box, grinned from ear to ear. "Your Majesty, are you hungry? Why didn't the Empress use the main entrance?" Xiao Jingheng raised an eyebrow, a drop of ink splattering onto the words Imperial Consort Selection. "It's a shortcut." She climbed out, dusting off her skirt. The bright red spicy chicken cubes in the food box glistened with oil. "I remember you can't handle spicy food." Well, her gaze drifted toward the willow tree outside the window. The imperial physician said eating spicy food helps cultivate marital harmony. Suddenly, the world spun. Xiao Jingheng pulled her onto his lap, a wolf hair brush poised just above the tip of her nose. "How about I teach the Empress a more effective method?" Wait, she suddenly grabbed the corner of the memorial. Why does this mention the Imperial Consort Selection? The vermilion imperial rescript glared back. "I fear my wife. Do not seek death." Late at night, Su Tang crouched by the pond, her fishing net shimmering silver under the moonlight. From the treetops, hidden guards whispered, "Her Majesty is stealing koi again. Should we report to the Emperor?" A light cough sounded from behind. Xiao Jingheng held a glass lantern, its light dancing across his sharply defined features. Didn't the Empress say she had a stomachache, fighting poison with poison? She stood frozen like a statue, still holding the fishing net. Silence spread amidst the chirping of summer insects. Xiao Jingheng suddenly rolled up his dragon-embroidered sleeve, cast the net at a 45-degree angle. Half an hour later, the chief eunuch came running, holding up the hem of his robe. "Your Majesty, the Siamese envoy is weeping over their national treasure." Su Tang paused in front of the grill, sprinkling half the chili powder. "Maybe, give him a fish tail." Royal hunting grounds times autumn hunt. Civil and military officials whispered as they watched the gilded carriage shared by the Emperor and Empress. A military officer stroked his beard. "I heard the Empress is an exceptional archer." A civil official held a hand warmer. "They say His Majesty taught her himself." The carriage curtain was suddenly blown open by the wind. Su Tang, wrapped in a fox fur cloak, was fast asleep, a glistening strand of drool hanging at the corner of her mouth. "The Queen is conserving her energy." Xiao Jingyan pressed a finger to his lips, when suddenly a startled wild boar burst from the forest. "Protect His Majesty." The guards drew their swords. "Her Majesty's divine archery." The officials knelt in unison. "Why is the target moving?" She yawned and slumped back onto the soft pillow. Inside the tent, Su Tang stood barefoot on the carpet, counting the game. Your Majesty owes me 3 rabbits, Xiao Jingheng untied her hair ribbon. What's the wager? The ribbon drifted onto the candlestick, and the flame suddenly went out. The next day, morning, the noble ladies stole glances at the chief and whispered among themselves. Lady Jiao covered her face with a round fan. Why is Her Majesty constantly rubbing her waist? Lady Yi stifled a laugh. I heard she personally swept the snow yesterday. It's all your fault. Su Tang pinched Xiao Jingheng's thigh fiercely under the table. I clearly taught you sword dancing, he said with a straight face as he served her food, yet his fingertips traced circles in her palm. As fireworks exploded, Xiao Jingheng suddenly slipped her a gilded red envelope. Lucky money for the new year. The imperial seal. She almost jumped up as she felt the hard object. Fake, a warm breath whispered by her ear. The real one is. Her hand was guided downward. Su Tang bristled and slammed the table. Xiao Jingheng, this is a palace banquet. The following spring. Chun Dao rushed into the imperial study in tears. Your Majesty, the Empress has hung the imperial seal around the cat's neck. Let her do as she pleases. Xiao Jingyan didn't even look up as he reviewed the memorials stamped with cat paw prints. Outside the window, Su Tang's coaxing voice could be heard. Good kitty. Stamp this and you'll get a dried fish tilde. The morning sun shone brightly, illuminating the ground covered in glowing crimson plum blossom prints. End. The second story. On the day of the selection, as soon as I stepped into the palace with my left foot, the emperor coughed up blood and died suddenly. I was sent to guard the imperial mausoleum, and that very night, lightning struck the ancestral graves, turning the forest of tombstones into a chaotic burial ground. The Empress, gritting her teeth, stuffed me into the imperial kitchen, only for a basket of vegetables to poison half the court. The regent interrogated me overnight, but ended up staring at me and laughing wildly for 3 days. Heaven blesses our dynasty. Such an auspicious sign. You ought to be sent to the enemy nation for a marriage alliance. Later, the enemy crown prince held me by the waist as we watched a play from the city wall. His father fell from a horse and broke his leg. The chancellor choked to death on a cake, and the enemy camp was struck by a locust plague. He affectionately stroked the back of my neck and whispered, "My beloved, just put in a little more effort, and next month I can ascend the throne. I, Liu Jiaojiao, am finally going to rise to fame and fortune today." Standing at the palace gate, I touched the gilded hairpin I had saved for 3 years to afford, feeling delighted as I schemed that once selected as a court lady, I would aim for the idlest concubine position to idle away my life. It would be best if I could be assigned next to the imperial kitchen, sneaking bites of hibiscus cakes every day, announcing the court ladies to enter the hall. The eunuch's shrill voice startled me. I quickly imitated the noble ladies ahead, holding my posture as I stepped over the vermilion threshold. Just as my left foot entered the grand hall, I heard a dull thud. Looking up, I saw the old emperor on the dragon throne rolling his eyes and sliding down, with a suspicious red liquid trickling from the corner of his mouth. Your Majesty, what's wrong?" The entire hall instantly fell into chaos. I stood frozen in place, watching as the imperial physician rushed forward to take the pulse, then dropped to his knees with a thud. "Your Majesty has passed away." All eyes turned sharply toward me. The white-bearded old man from the Imperial Observatory was hopping on his feet, frantically counting on his fingers. The purple star fell when this woman entered the hall. "She is cursed with the 7 killings, a great omen of doom, a great omen." The beads on the Empress's phoenix crown trembled as she cried, "Guards, drag this ill-omened star to guard the Imperial Mausoleum." The night I was thrown into the Imperial Mausoleum, thunder and rain raged fiercely. Ancestors above. I kowtowed before the pitch-black memorial tablets. I truly didn't mean to. As soon as the words left my mouth, a bolt of lightning struck the stone ceiling outside the hall. With a deafening roar, the entire forest of steles toppled like dominoes, crashing down one after another. The next morning, I stared at the collapsed ruins of the royal ancestral tomb, locking eyes with the ashen-faced Minister of Rites, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, his face even paler than the mourning robes he wore. "Take this," he stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Send her to the imperial kitchen. Let her grow vegetables. when Matron Zhong from the imperial kitchen handed me a basket of greens. She looked at me as if I were a plague carrier. "Just squat here and pick worms. Don't you dare touch the stove." I pouted and sullenly rummaged through the vegetable leaves, only to suddenly discover a few plump, green caterpillars. In the spirit of not wasting anything, I casually tossed the bug into the neighboring chicken coop. After all, it wouldn't do for the palace chickens to starve. That very night, half the people in the palace were vomiting and suffering from diarrhea. When the imperial physician found that cage of chickens in the kitchen behind the imperial kitchen, I was hiding in the woodshed, nibbling on a stolen bun. "It was her who raised the poisonous insects," the young eunuch shrieked, pointing at me. By the time I was dragged into the punishment bureau, I had already prepared my last words, but in the middle of the night, the sound of clanking chains echoed, and what met my eyes was the tip of a pair of black boots embroidered with subtle patterns. "Look up." The voice was as cold as a blade dipped in snow. I trembled as I looked up, meeting a pair of phoenix eyes that seemed to smile without truly smiling. The candlelight danced across his sharply defined face, a scene that should have been pleasing to the eye, yet it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Regent Prince Xiao Jingheng lifted my chin with his jade-handled fan and suddenly let out a light laugh. "Someone with your talents." The tip of the fan slowly grazed my throat. "What a pity you weren't sent to the enemy kingdom as a peace offering." On the third day of my imprisonment in the punishment bureau, I finally realized one thing. I might truly be a harbinger of misfortune. Not that I actually believe in all that superstitious talk about fate, but the moment your left foot stepped into the palace gate, the emperor dropped dead on the spot. Then you were exiled to guard the imperial tombs, only for lightning to shatter the ancestral tablets to pieces that very night. And now you're being accused of poisoning and plotting against the royal family. Anyone in your shoes would start to wonder. "Dinner's ready." The cell door clanged open, and the jailer tossed in a moldy steamed bun. I reached out, the iron chains on my wrists clanking noisily. With this kind of treatment, one would think I had poisoned the entire imperial palace, not just a mere 23 royal chefs and 8 concubines. "Brother," I broke the steamed bun in half and handed one part back. "Could I ask about that marriage alliance the regent mentioned?" The jailer leaped back 3 steps as if he had seen a ghost. "Well, it seems my fearsome reputation has spread throughout the entire Office of Justice. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a basin of ice-cold water. "Get up," the black-clad guard said coldly. "The prince wants to see you." Dripping wet, I was dragged into a warm chamber, where the plush carpet on the floor was thicker than my blanket. The charcoal brazier was burning brightly, making one drowsy. If one ignored the man sitting in the main seat, leisurely wiping his sword, Regent Xiao Jingheng had changed into a moon-white casual robe today, the collar loosely open, making him look much more relaxed than when he was in the punishment bureau. If one ignored the gleaming cold steel of the sword in his hand. "Do you know why I've summoned you?" he asked without looking up. I dropped to my knees with a thud. "Because of the vegetable worms. Because you know how to grow vegetables." I jerked my head up, nearly twisting my neck. Xiao Jingheng finally lowered his sword, looking over with a faint, ambiguous smile. "Were you the one who grew those vegetables in the imperial kitchen?" "Yes, but the bugs, it's not poisoned," he chimed in. I stood there dumbfounded, my mouth agape. "The imperial physician has checked it." He casually tossed a handkerchief over, which landed right on my face. "The imperial chef used rancid lard." I frantically pulled the handkerchief off and caught a faint whiff of sandalwood scent. "So," I asked cautiously, "I don't have to die?" Xiao Jingheng suddenly stood up, startling me into shrinking back, but he walked over to me unhurriedly, crouched down, and lifted my chin with his sword sheath. "Liu Jiaojiao." He narrowed his eyes as if examining a rare object. "Do you know how special you are?" The scabbard was icy cold, sending a shiver through me. "On the day you entered the palace, you brought about the emperor's death. After one night guarding the imperial tomb, you destroyed the ancestral graves. Even planting vegetables casually gets you framed." He suddenly laughed. "A lucky charm like you, it'd be a waste not to send you off to the enemy nation for a marriage alliance." Only then did I notice that when he smiled, a small dimple appeared on his left cheek, making him look somewhat innocent. "Depart in 3 days," as he stood up. His sleeve brushed past the tip of my nose. "Go bring calamity to northern Liang." I was placed in the laundry bureau to await news. Though it was called an arrangement, it was essentially being thrown into a side room filled with dirty clothes, with 2 sword-bearing guards stationed at the door. Miss, a round-faced young maid secretly slipped me a package of pastries. Have something to eat. I was so touched I nearly cried. Aren't you afraid I'll bring you bad luck? What are you afraid of? She leaned close to my ear. The prince's orders. He said you have a sweet tooth. A piece of almond cake caught in my throat. Even more bizarrely, the next 3 days, I was treated like royalty. Silks and satins were delivered in an endless stream, jewelry boxes piled up half the bed, and there was even a matron specially assigned to teach me Northern Liang etiquette. You are truly blessed, miss, the nanny said with a smile as she combed my hair. The Northern Liang crown prince is young and handsome, coveted by countless noble ladies. In the bronze mirror, I looked like an exquisite puppet, my neck aching under the weight of the jewels and hairpins. Nanny, I whispered, why did the regent choose me? The nanny's hand paused. I only know this much, she said as she tucked a golden phoenix hairpin into my hair. The prince said the Northern Liang royal family owes him a life. The hairpin tip suddenly pricked my scalp, making me hiss in pain. Remember this, miss. The matron's voice suddenly turned cold. Once you reach Northern Liang, you are nothing but a pawn of Great Jew. I looked at the unfamiliar reflection in the mirror and suddenly understood something. Turns out, what I thought was bad luck was, in some people's eyes, the perfect weapon. On the day of the wedding, the capital was hit by a once-in-a-century rainstorm. Under the weight of my 10-pound phoenix crown, I listened to the matron of honor murmuring water brings fortune. My heart pounding with unease. The last time someone told me thunder brings fortune, the imperial mausoleum collapsed that very night. Don't be afraid, miss, a round-faced maid whispered, slipping a packet of Osmanthus candy into my sleeve. The Northern Liang envoy brought 300 elite soldiers for escort. I held the sugar packet, looking at my heavily made-up self in the bronze mirror, looking just like an opera performer. The matron said this was the makeup personally chosen by the Northern Liang crown prince, claiming it needed to be festive. I suspect he wanted to paint me like a door god to ward off evil spirits and protect the household. The auspicious hour has arrived. The Swoner's blare is making my head ache. Just as I stepped out of the palace gate, I heard a snap. The beaded strings on my phoenix crown broke, scattering pearls all over the ground with a clatter. The wedding procession retreated 3 steps in unison. Well, we're falling apart before we've even set out. The official road in the heavy rain was as muddy as a pot of porridge. I sat in the swaying carriage, counting Osmanthus candies while waiting for nightfall. Miss, we're almost at Qingya Pass, said Quia, the dowry maid, as she lifted the carriage curtain, only to let out a sudden shriek. An arrow whistled through the air and thudded into the carriage window, its fletching still vibrating with a low hum. Bandits, protect the princess. Outside, chaos erupted instantly. The clashing of swords, the neighing of horses, and the roar of the pouring rain flooded the ears. Quia had already fainted. In a panic, I tore off my phoenix crown to use as a shield. The thing weighed at least 10 pounds. It would definitely hurt if used to hit someone. The carriage curtain was suddenly flung open. Don't move. I swung the phoenix crown with my eyes closed. I have deadly energy. Touch me and you die. My wrist was suddenly grabbed. Murdering your husband. That voice. I snapped my eyes open, meeting a pair of smiling phoenix eyes. Rainwater dripped down his jawline. The black face covering had slipped off at some point, revealing a face I could never forget even in death. Regent Prince Xiao Jingheng. No, I should call him now, the Crown Prince of Northern Liang. My voice cracked with shock. He knelt on one knee on the carriage shaft, his soaked night attire clinging to the contours of his muscles, a blood-dripping sword still in his hand. He raised an eyebrow at the remark. I'm surprised you still remember. The sounds of fighting outside gradually subsided, and a guard came running to report, Your Highness, it's all been taken care of. Only then did I realize that all the bandits were standing obediently behind him, not a trace of their former lawlessness remaining. You, my voice trembled. You intercepted your own marriage procession. Xiao Jingheng thrust his sword into the carriage floor and reached out to tear at my wedding dress. What else? Did you really think I'd let you enter the Eastern Palace with that hideous makeup? Wait, what are you doing? With a tearing sound, The outer robe embroidered with golden phoenixes was ripped in half by him, revealing the everyday clothes I had prepared underneath. Only then did I realize that the inner lining of the wedding dress was the moon-white color he always wore. "Will you put it on yourself, or shall I help you?" He dangled a belt from his fingertip, swaying it slightly. I snatched it from him. "Where exactly are you taking me?" Xiao Jinghan suddenly leaned in close, his breath tinged with the scent of blood brushing against my ear. "Running away together, my dear wife." I huddled in the corner of the carriage, watching the man who called himself the Northern Liang Crown Prince leisurely brew tea. "So," I clenched the hem of my clothes, "you're both the Regent of Great Ju and the Crown Prince of Northern Liang." Amid the misty aroma of tea, he handed me a cup of biluo chun. 10 years ago, during the Northern Liang Palace coup, my mother risked her life to send me away, and the Regent of Great Ju, just a substitute, he said lightly. He died of illness 3 years ago. And I happened to take his place. I stared at my reflection in the tea, suddenly recalling the nanny's words. The Northern Liang royal family owes him a life. Why was I chosen for the marriage alliance? I asked, voicing the most crucial doubt. Xiao Jingheng suddenly reached out, his thumb brushing the rouge at the corner of my mouth. "Because the way you tossed vegetable worms into the chicken coop looked exactly like my stepmother feeding me poisoned cakes when I was a child." I nearly dropped my teacup. "Just kidding," he chuckled softly, pulling a bamboo scroll from his sleeve. "See for yourself." The scroll was densely covered with records of my glorious deeds. At 7, I was blamed for the death of a chicken-stealing weasel. At 12, I was accused of causing a gambling den to collapse. Even last year, when Granny Wang next door tripped and fell, it was pinned on me. "These," I trembled with anger, "are all made up by you." "No." His eyes suddenly turned playful. "All of these are true." The carriage jolted violently, and I tumbled straight into his arms. Xiao Jingheng took the opportunity to grip my waist, his voice suddenly turning deep. "Liu Jiaojiao, do you think your bad luck just came out of nowhere?" My head was buzzing, as if someone had stuffed a hornet's nest inside it. Xiao Jingheng's hand was still gripping my waist, the warmth of his palm seeping through the fabric, making me flustered. I struggled to sit up straight, but he pressed me back into his embrace. "Don't move," he whispered against my earlobe. "There are hidden arrows." I instantly stiffened like a block of wood. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted 3 arrows glowing with a blue light, firmly embedded right where we had just been. "Your Highness." The guard outside the carriage trembled. "It's the second prince's men." Xiao Jingheng chuckled softly, suddenly pressing me down onto the cushioned seat. "Close your eyes." "What?" The world spun before my eyes as he rolled with me into the corner of the carriage. At the same moment, a sharp whiz sounded. A sleeve arrow grazed past my temple and embedded itself deep into the carriage wall. My eyes widened as I stared at the peacock feather fletching on the arrow's tail, the mark of the Northern Liang royal family. "It seems my dear younger brother," Xiao Jingheng said leisurely as he pulled out the arrow, "is very eager to meet his sister-in-law." Even after moving into the secret villa, my legs were still weak. "Drink it." Xiao Jingheng handed me a bowl of pitch-black medicine. I warily shrank back. "Poison, calming potion." He suddenly pinched my nose and poured it straight in. "You're shaking like a sieve." The moment the bitterness exploded on the tip of my tongue, I vaguely remembered when I was 7 years old. It was the same bitter medicine, which mother said was to treat sleepwalking. But I only found out later that the gambling den next door had collapsed the night I sleepwalked. "Liu Jiaojiao." Xiao Jingheng suddenly called me by my full name. "Do you really not remember these things?" I gripped the medicine bowl tightly. "Remember what?" He suddenly brushed aside the hair on my forehead, his fingertip pointing to an old scar. "Where were you on the mid-autumn night 12 years ago?" It was as if a tear had been ripped open in my memory. "Flames, screams, and Changle Lane." I blurted out. "I sneaked out to see the lanterns." Xiao Jingheng's eyes were frighteningly bright. And then, my eyes widened abruptly. "That blood-soaked young man I hid in the firewood shed, remember now?" Xiao Jingheng had somehow propped himself above me, his breath brushing against my lips. "My little savior." My scalp tingled with dread. That year, I was only 8 years old when I found a dying, handsome young man in the firewood shed. The jade pendant at his waist was engraved with the character Jing, and he begged me not to tell anyone. I stole my father's wound medicine for him. But that very night, our home was robbed. That wasn't a thief, he sneered. It was the Northern Liang covert guards. The candle flame crackled. And only then did I notice the old arrow wound below his collarbone, the very spot I had clumsily bandaged years ago. So my bad luck, it was a coincidence I arranged when I sent someone to clean up the aftermath. He twirled a strand of my hair around his finger. We couldn't let anyone find out that the Northern Liang crown prince had been saved by a little girl. I was so angry that I kicked out. You made me a jinx for over a decade, Xiao Jingheng grunted, but then pressed down on my leg. I'll make it up to you now, how to fix it. Before the words had even finished, a warmth touched my lips. This kiss carried the astringency of Biluo-chun tea and the bitterness of calming herbal soup, along with an indescribable, fierce intensity. I grabbed his collar to push him away, but my hand came away sticky with blood. You're hurt. He casually licked the blood from the corner of his lips. For 10 years of your safety, it's worth it. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled outside the window. I looked at his shadow cast on the wall, and in a daze, I saw again the youth in the woodshed on that rainy night, gripping my wrist and saying, "Don't be afraid, the most fearsome star of calamity has always been him." On the first day I moved into the Eastern Palace, I blew up the Northern Liang Imperial Palace. Literally, I just really wanted to cook a bowl of noodles. I clutched my scorched sleeve, staring at the small kitchen billowing with thick smoke. When Xiao Jingheng returned from court, I was squatting in the ruins, poking at a half-cooked fried egg. The hem of his black court robe stopped before my eyes, the golden dragon embroidery shimmering in the sunlight. My beloved consort. He bent down to pick up a charred brick. The Northern Liang treasury is a bit tight lately. I shrank my neck. Can't he afford to pay for it? Then pay with your flesh. He hoisted me onto his shoulder. Starting tonight, as it turned out, Xiao Jingheng's so-called payment with flesh was meant literally. He wanted me to be his food taster. Taste this. He picked up a piece of crystal-clear perch sashimi and brought it to my lips. The dining table in the Eastern Palace was even larger than the ancestral hall in my home, with 12 dishes arranged like works of art. I carefully took a bite, and a fresh, sweet flavor burst on the tip of my tongue. Delicious. Xiao Jingheng suddenly narrowed his eyes. No reaction. He turned to ask the imperial physician, "What are the poison test results?" The elderly imperial physician knelt with a thud. "Your Highness, her ladyship has a unique constitution. She is immune to all poisons." My chopsticks clattered onto the table. No wonder this scoundrel made me taste the dishes. "Liu Jiaojiao," Xiao Jinghuan said cheerfully as he ladled a bowl of soup for me. "The medicinal herb you applied for me when I was 8 was the once-in-a-millennium vermilion flame blossom." The spoon stirred a whirlpool in the bowl, and I vaguely recalled my mother saying that wild flower, red as blood, was a life-saving medicine passed down through generations. "So what am I now, a walking antidote?" he said with a laugh, leaning closer, "and exclusively reserved for this crown prince." My ferocious reputation was now firmly established in the Eastern Palace. While admiring flowers in the imperial garden, Consort Li accidentally tried to push me into the lake, but ended up slipping on moss and falling in herself, becoming a drenched mess. The Prime Minister's wife held a banquet, and the pastries I touched gave the Prime Minister diarrhea for 3 days. The most outrageous part was when the second prince came to the Eastern Palace to provoke me. As soon as he drew his sword at me, the crystal lamp from the beam fell right at his feet. The second prince trembled with rage. "What kind of evil sorcery are you using?" I quietly hid behind Xiao Jingheng. "This time, it really wasn't me, second brother." Xiao Jingheng slowly twirled his jade thumb ring. "The gods are watching from above." That very night, I was pinned down on the brocade quilt by the god to settle accounts. "Vermilion flame flowers don't have this effect," he chuckled, nibbling on my earlobe. "When did my beloved consort tamper with the beam?" I squirmed from the tickling sensation. Just yesterday, while you were reviewing the memorials." Xiao Jingheng suddenly lowered his body, startling me into a soft gasp. "Clever," he panted, kissing my sweat-dampened temple. "If you were any cleverer, you'd have realized that when the lamp fell, I tied a fishing line to the sleeve arrow." The court was flooded with impeachment memorials. "The crown princess has an ill-fated destiny." The white-bearded minister wept bitterly. "Yesterday, I merely brushed past her, and when I returned home, I found black smoke rising from my ancestral grave, hiding behind the screen and munching on a peach. I heard Xiao Jingyan spouting nonsense with a straight face. Your ancestral grave is on Chishan Mountain. Perfect timing, the imperial astronomer said. Yesterday's lightning strike targeted treacherous officials. The minister's face turned as green as if he'd been poisoned. After the court session, Xiao Jingyan pulled me out from behind the curtain, his fingertips still stained with cinnabar from reviewing memorials. Having fun, I guiltily nuzzled his palm. I really don't know where the Liu minister's family grave is. I know. He suddenly picked me up and placed me on a pile of memorials. The Ministry of Rights submitted the blueprint. The scent of ink mixed with ambergris lingered at the tip of my nose. I suddenly noticed that the top memorial was titled Petition to Depose the Crown Princess, and the vermilion endorsement read clearly, to be discussed further. I fear my wife, a new concubine, has entered the Eastern Palace, said to be the legitimate granddaughter of the Prime Minister. Don't worry, Your Highness, whispered Quia as she combed my hair. His Highness didn't even get a clear look at her face. In the bronze mirror, I responded vaguely with an Osmanthus candy in my mouth. Xiao Jingheng left for the military camp before dawn this morning. Before leaving, he wrapped me up like a silkworm cocoon and tucked me into bed, never mentioning a word about this matter. Your Highness, the Crown Princess, a delicate, coquettish voice drifted in from outside the hall. I turned to see a beauty adorned in gold and silver, her jade pendants tinkling like music as she walked. I am Lady Su, here to pay my respects, as she bowed. A half-length green jade bracelet slipped from her sleeve, identical to the one I had shattered yesterday. This bracelet, His Highness gifted it to me, Consort Su said proudly, raising an eyebrow. He said it makes my skin look fairer. I nearly choked on the Osmanthus candy last night. Xiao Jingheng clearly said that bracelet was as ugly as a pickling jar and insisted on smashing it himself just to hear the sound. You're so thoughtful, sister. I smiled and pushed the tea tray over. Care to try the newly arrived Biluo-chun tea? As the teacup was handed halfway, I suddenly slipped. The scalding tea splashed all over her skirt, and that jade bracelet cracked in two with a crack. Oh dear. I covered my mouth. My hand slipped. Consort Su's retaliation came even faster than I had imagined. That evening, my bird's nest soup had an extra ingredient. Your Highness, don't drink it. Quia's face turned pale. This silver spoon. The spoon's tip gleamed with an eerie green hue. I stared at it for 3 seconds, then suddenly threw my head back and downed it in one gulp. Your Highness, what's there to panic about? I smacked my lips. It's sweet. The palace doors were suddenly kicked open. Xiao Jingheng burst in with the imperial physician just as I was leisurely nibbling on my third Osmanthus cake. Spit it out, he said, pinching my chin as he tried to force the antidote down my throat. I turned my head to avoid it. I told you, I'm immune to all poisons. The unbearably bitter medicine was poured into my mouth through his lips. The palace servants in the room turned around in unison, and Quia was so startled that she dropped the handkerchief in her hand. Xiao Jingheng, I pounded his shoulder. It's a laxative. He licked the medicine stain from the corner of his lips, turned his head, and sneered. Bring Su Sha here. When Consort Su knelt on the ground, she was still pitifully wiping away her tears. I've been wronged. Xiao Jingheng leaned on the soft couch, idly playing with the ends of my hair. Do you know why you were chosen to enter the Eastern Palace? Consort Su's eyes lit up. Your Highness has shown me favor. Because your grandfather embezzled 300,000 dan of military provisions from Jiang Bei. He suddenly tossed out an account book. And you, last year at the Double Ninth Festival banquet, you slipped arsenic into the imperial kitchen. I jolted upright. That time at the banquet, the second prince suddenly vomited uncontrollably. Turns out it was her doing. I didn't do it. Consort Su suddenly threw herself at me. Your Highness, save me. It's the crown prince trying to frame our Su family. I instinctively raised my hand, and a paper packet slipped from my sleeve, the very pearl powder she had given me earlier that day. Oh, Xiao Jingheng raised an eyebrow. Does my beloved consort also have a souvenir? The imperial physician finished the examination trembling with fear. Your Highness, it is Duanchang powder, a deadly poison. Amid the deathly silence in the room, I sighed and said, Sister, have you ever heard of the phrase returning someone's own trick to them? Before Consort Su could react, Xiao Jingheng had already pried open her jaw and poured the packet of powder down her throat. Don't worry. He gently wiped the medicine powder from the corner of her mouth. I had the imperial physician modify it. At worst, it'll just cause a rash. As soon as he finished speaking, red bumps erupted all over Consort Su's face, making her look like a boiled crab. Your Highness, how cruel. I pretended to wipe away tears. Such a beautiful young lady. Xiao Jinghen pulled me close by the shoulder. My consort taught me well. After Consort Su was dragged away, I couldn't hold back my laughter any longer. Drama queen, Xiao Jingyan whispered in my ear. When did you switch the packet? When she slipped something into my sleeve, I said proudly, swinging my feet, using the fishing line technique you taught me. He suddenly pressed me down into the brocade quilt, our noses touching. You've graduated. Want to learn something more exciting? My heart pounded.